And for the last time, welcome to Best in Faction.
A podcast about Warhammer 40k?
Really competitive, so that makes sense. I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
And I'm Chuck. Or Lucas, depending on what you look at.
Exactly right. So, hi, everybody. This is weird. Not only is it the last episode, but we also haven't done this in a while.
It's been like since the summer?
It's been since Charity Hammer.
Is it?
Oh, really?
Pretty much. Like,
oh, fair enough.
I think we just didn't do anything after Charity Hammer.
Well, that sounds like us. I also think that that's exactly, and I think that that's a great why the show's coming to an end. We stopped making content and none of us knew how long it had been. So that's not amazing, but that has nothing to do with the love we had for the show or the value that we think we created. So let's not let this be a negative thing because that would be silly. So this is going to be a celebration. For those that don't know, the first episode is called It Began with a Storm. Final episode is called It Ends with a Celebration. So we're going to try to be upbeat and happy because this has been a neat journey and it's going to be a fun journey to talk about over the next few hours. So we're going to start off the way we always start off the show with, hey, Chuck, how's it going?
Pretty all right. I'm playing a lot of Baldur's Gate. Doing an incredibly mild and small amount of hobby on my Thousand Sons, trying to make them have all the right gear. But sort of hanging out.
And you have a tournament that you're going to go to at some point in the future?
There's an RTT at the store that's a couple blocks from my house in a couple of weeks. Okay. I don't even remember what week it is. It's coming.
Yes. The dedicated, intense, competitive Warhammer 40k players. Mitch, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Real quick, disclaimer to anyone at LVO who I told you to come and find this podcast because I do a podcast. I did not know it was ending. I apologize. This was not an intentional. No, but I like to all the people at LVO who are like, hey, you should definitely check out Best in Faction. That's on me. Sorry.
Well, they should check out this episode because it's going to be great fun.
But anyway, no, I've actually been pretty deep into 40K. Played in a couple of fairly large events, GT size. Went like 3-2. What I found is with my head injury, I'm still not able to recall all the rules on the fly. I pull from the wrong editions sometimes, and I don't want to give that play experience to my opponents. So I'm kind of taking a break from competitive play until I can get more reps in with one army and just get to the point where I feel like I have it down pat. Because I thought I did, and I'm like, no, I don't. Not in the competitive environment where you're trying to keep track of everything. Not there yet. So that was something I learned. Did Slaanesh, which was great. Did LVO, which was the smoothest and largest LVO ever. That was rad.
We have that on the agenda too, guys.
Yeah,
so
I'm not going to go deep into that right now.
I'm telling them. I'm telling the people that are listening out there.
But yeah, so it's been a really good time of 40K is in a pretty great place in my opinion. I disagree. I wouldn't say it's the easiest game to play. I think the idea that it's any simpler than any other edition is silly at this point. I'm not saying it's more complex, but having fielded as many questions as I have now in this edition, there is just as much nuance and stuff as like 9th or 8th. Obviously you can pick different points in any of those editions where it could be worse or better, but I don't really see it as different. I think we're seeing this is probably just going to be what we're going to see is the same iterations over and over again. I think the big changes are not happening anymore. I think GW feels like they found a working formula and now they're trying to squeeze more money out of it, first of all, but also make it work better. And I think that's a good thing. There's a great thing about Sonic the Hedgehog where every Sonic game has like something good in it, but they never stop to iterate on it. They just do something completely different in the next Sonic game. And there's a that kind of feels like a lot what 40K used to be a lot more of, is like, okay, we're doing this now we're doing this, and now I feel like we have a much more of a design path. There's like a road you can kind of see, and you may not like that road. It may there will be plenty of potholes and bumps, but at least you can kind of see where it's going, and you can decide whether or not you want to commit to that.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with you. I like where 40K's at, and I think that they're revving correctly. I think that the data slate every 3 months is perfect. I don't think it should be every month. I don't think it should be every 6 months. I think it's on exactly the right schedule. And while it changes the game quite a bit, I don't think that I don't think it's a giant like you said, Mitch. I don't think that they're doing massive heavy lifting. Now, I will say that the rumors I'm hearing of the next one is that it has more Eldar nerfs. And I will say that in one edition, nerfing Eldar 5 times in like a year, or not even a year, right? No, yes.
That's just every 40K edition, except for the
It's
nerfs are
just
just
like-
happening faster. So pretty soon
we'll
we're going to
have a
get a
double
double
nerf, is that-
event. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to have a double event. We were going the exact same place.
I don't know. I would have liked it was just one nerf,
Just
and then it was
eliminate them.
done. I think they light touched them too many times, so it looks like a bunch of nerfs, but it's just
Yeah.
failing to actually put them in the ground.
Yeah, I think that I feel like whoever is advocating for Eldar in the balancing thing is advocating too hard and just keeping them. It's like, no. Every now you slam them down to get them to like a 40%, then you bring them up to a 55 again, and people feel like that's okay. But if they never get below 50 something, it doesn't feel okay.
Yeah, and they're just always good. And part of the problem is that their current rule set's not written well.
Nah.
Well, I see it. I've been playing with Thousand Suns and tinkering with them. They also have an incredibly strong army rule,
Yeah.
and when an army has an incredibly strong army rule, it's very hard to balance it.
Mhm.
Like my basic Rubric Marine is incredibly expensive because they're like, if we don't do that, you're unstoppable, right? And so I think they're going to have that same sort of trouble with them.
Mhm.
Very fair.
Okay, so before we get into our agenda of fun things, I'll answer the "How are you, Colin?" question with what's
Yeah.
happening with the network. I have thought about the different things I'd like to say, and we'll see if they come out in the order I want to say them in. Basically, I had a personal journey in 40K that was amazing. I had an incredible chance at talent carrying me at the beginning, and then it wasn't enough, and I had to learn how to develop skill to go with talent. I'm so glad that happened. And I continued winning, and I continued doing things, and the show came with me. And then we did the network, and then suddenly I couldn't do competitive 40K the way I wanted to. My real life exploded into things we don't need to talk about, but it's not good. It's not been great. It's going to be okay though, and I know that. But what happened is I stopped going to events. And while that was happening, it was very difficult for me and the way my mind works to be completely engaged in the network. Further, the way that it works in 40K is, what have you done for me lately for content? So if you're winning a lot and people are hearing your name a lot, people listen to your content. And if you're not doing that, people slowly leave your content. We were one of the first podcasts, and now there's 750 million 40K podcasts. And many of them are willing to put a great deal more effort into preparation and marketing and production when we just wanted to talk. So while that's been happening, where I'm not able to go to events like I want to, and I'm struggling to keep the network going, and it's kind of all shifting around, I went to an event, played at the event, and then I came home and I said, I have fun. People were great. And my models were cool. I painted them, and I like got the Dark Angels army ready, and I went with Hank, and we both went undefeated, and that was really neat. And there's amazing stories from that happening. But I wasn't fun.
Colin,
and the
real
reason it
quick.
wasn't fun is completely me. I have
You're
an
having an
unhealthy.
audio issue.
Oh, am I?
It's maybe it's just me, but it seems
Cutting
like
out every once in a while.
it's cutting out like really low, and you're saying
Okay.
some really meaningful things, and I don't want them to.
Okay. I'm going to talk like this and hope that that helps.
That's a lot better.
So,
That's much better.
so
Nope. They just did it again.
well, I'm going to take my headphones off and we're going to see if there's an echo. All right, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, it's someone in chat is saying auto game.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's way better. While Colin is fixing that, I did want to say that I am excited to be in the minority again as a 40K player without a podcast. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but also it's just 3 more white guys going into the white guy pool. So is there an echo?
No.
Okay,
Great. We'll just rock it without headphones then. So to go back a little bit, so podcast density increasing, I'm not spending enough effort on it. I'm not going to events. And then after all of that, I realized over the past 3 months or so that I don't have a healthy relationship with competition. I really, really like to do the work. I like to do the study, do the learning, do the practice. I like to go and play the game. But when I'm playing the game, I care too much about the outcome. And it's not causing me to cheat or anything, but it's getting in the way of my own fun. And I think that it's a mental health thing that I need to work on, because I would like to be able to be involved in competitive gaming to that level, to the level that 40K allows. So I've been thinking a lot about all of that. And I talked with some of the other content producers, and they all had kind of different ideas for what the future should hold. And so we talked about it and realized that it's time. It's time for this journey to end. This network won't. This is not trying to be arrogant. This network is not going to work if I'm not playing 40K or going to tournaments. And it's not because other people can't do it. It's just because the way we've set it up is that. So yeah, kind of a mental health break for me. Certainly a 40K break, but I want to be clear that I have no issue with 40K. I think, like Mitch said, I think it's in a great spot. I'm not rage quitting. If I were, I would be really funny about it, and I'm not. I don't see any particularly big problems with the game, and I love what's happened to LVO becoming more of the big giant party, and the World Championship now existing. I think that's an amazing improvement. I like the addition of team tournaments. Like, everything that I want from 40K is happening. Unfortunately, I can't enjoy it. So I need to go figure that out. So here's what's happening. The network's ending. If you're paying a Patreon or a YouTube feed, those will end on your own. On their own. You don't need to go do anything. The YouTube will stay up. It doesn't cost me anything. It's got a lot of content on it. I might use it in the future if I want to do a thing. Like in the middle of March, Danny and some other people are coming out to play the Old World. We all have models and we want to do that. So maybe Danny and I stream a game. So we'll leave the YouTube up to do fun things occasionally. But it's not going to have new content appearing on it. The podcast feed will go away over the next few weeks. The ability to download will be set to unlimited, which means you can grab every episode if that's important to you. I actually had 2 people ask about that, guys. If you think that's weird, I do as well.
Oh, I'm gonna 100%.
Well, I already have them all, but
yeah.
Yes, you will be able to download them all if that's what's important to you. So let's see. The Discord is staying open. It is going to be invite only from the admins. So if you want a friend in there, if those of you that are in there know why I'm leaving it open. It's not the busiest Discord. It's not the one with the best competitive information. It's just our favorite because the people in there are so amazing. So we're going to leave that open. Show-wise, this show is stopping. This Week in 40K is also ending. Billy's like, I kind of want to do it on my own, but not if it's the only show on the network. And I said, that makes sense. And then a few things I'm really excited about. The Best Overall Show, which is a relatively new show on the network, and came on after I was kind of emotionally and mentally checked out, and yet still made an incredible show with no help from me. So they've made a really great show. They're going to go do it on their own, which I'm really excited about. They're going to go do their own show, their own YouTube channel. They did some TTS streaming that they were very proud of. So they're going to do some stuff. I'm really excited about that. That's an amazing three humans, Noah and Joe and Kaz. And then finally, the TNG guys. In a way, the weirdest part of our journey. So I'm going to talk about these guys in the history of Best in Faction that we're going to do. But basically, these three young men who are all on who were all on Team USA last year, who win tournaments like crazy, who do one of the best competitive podcasts in the world, got asked by StatCheck to go do a show for them. StatCheck has a bigger audience, and StatCheck is run by people that have an incredible amount of attention in the competitive scene. That is perfect for them. I would feel awful if I got in the way of them moving over there. They were very nice about it, by the way. But no, we agreed. It's what makes sense. So that's what's happening. It is sad for me, and I'm sure for other people as well. But there isn't anything to say it can't come back. There isn't anything to say we can't do Best in Faction again. But for right now, all of these things have to come to an end and see what the future holds. So with that, and if you guys are watching and you have questions, please feel free to shoot them in there, and we will answer them as we go. Okay, so that's the sad stuff. And we'll talk at the end about what it means to us and all that stuff that could potentially get sappy. We'll do that at the end. So for now, let's do a normal episode of Best in Faction. So I'll start by fumbling around about the agenda, which seems very appropriate. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk. Mitch is going to talk about LVO. I'm going to talk about Rogue Trader, which I'm excited about. We're going to give the history of Best in Faction, an oral history, if you will. And then we're going to share any really silly stories that we can think of that amuse us, and then we'll wrap up with our thoughts. So that's what we're doing. You'll notice that we are not predicting the data slate or anything else that is particularly competitively relevant.
Fuck that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the data slate other than the rumors I've heard, which are the same rumors all of you guys have heard. So if you stop going to tournaments, the people that tell you things stop telling you things. Anywho, let's start with the LVO judging experience. For those that don't know, Mitch is one of the now longtime judges of LVO. He goes down, he wears the yellow shirt, he answers questions, he walks around, and he always shares the experience with us when he comes back. So, Mitch.
Yeah, no, this year was no different. I put on my judge suspenders and had a great time. It was, like I said before, the smoothest LVO. Also, I want to give a shout out to Peter Akey, who is another, he's a Biff Pod alumni, Charity Hammer alum. Like, he's done so much behind the scenes, but he's now also one of the LVO judges. And it has been doing a great job. He was in charge of the friendly for the entire weekend. And like, that's its own event. Like with, I want to say it's like 40 to 50 tables or something. Like it's a lot. And you don't get the support that you get. It's not as big a team, and you have to also help judge in the main hall because you're right there. But that is one really cool thing that happened this year is all 40K. Well, not all 40K. No, yeah, all 40K was in the main hall because the only other thing was 30K in a different hall. So all 40K was in there. So you had the like the friendly teams event going on in the back, and the Friday RTTs, all that stuff going while the main event went on. The really cool thing, I will say, the big innovation this year at LVO is that every single table number had a QR code. And if you scan that QR code, it automatically started a text message with you, and all you have to enter is your table number, hit send, and we would dispatch a judge to your table. And when you have over 450 tables, it's a big deal. And it was really successful. We had judges with radios, and so we had guys in the back, so they were able to just come really quickly. The more soft-spoken people aren't trying to yell judge, or the people of shorter stature, not being able, doing that.
That's
So,
amazing, Mitch. That's
yeah,
incredible. That's so cool.
it worked so well. They tried
Oh
it
my God.
at one event before for FLG did, and it went phenomenally. It was really, really good. The player place terrain, very few issues, shockingly few. The only issue we had was that I was a set of tables that had an extra 2 pieces of terrain accidentally placed on them. So they're like, we can't fit these. And then we look at the packet, we're like, well, yeah, you're not supposed to have them. That's the problem. So past that, not like it went pretty well in general there. The vendor hall spread is no longer just in that one room. It's the whole hallway now too. And I got to make friends with a few different vendors. It's really cool to just hang out and see these people. One gentleman, all he does is curate like old 40K, like White Dwarfs, books, anything, and he just has all of them. So if you're looking for something, he's able to like it's just the collectibles at this point, right? And
that guy needs to American Pickers my basement and garage.
He's in Washington. I will link you up.
Yeah, it's just how many books do you want from how many editions?
Yeah, it's yeah, so that was cool. We had the 30K friendly going. We had Marvel tournaments, BattleTech tournaments. There was a whole hall dedicated just to the Star Wars games with X-Wing, Armada. They also had Battlefleet Gothic in there. And then no, not Battlefleet Gothic. I'm confusing that with the Space Hulk. They had Space Hulk in there.
Oh.
Sorry. And then Legion, obviously, I got to see some friends that from Boise who I used to play 40K with. Actually, the guy who got me back into 40K and taught me to play in 7th edition, got to see him. That was really cool. He's a Legion playtester now, so that's what he does. But yeah, saw Bob Kelly, saw like Dayton Ober, like just all the different faces and people. Saw Danny McDevitt there, posted a picture of that. That was really great to see him, even though he wasn't attending. But yeah, no, it was a really great time. We had fairly drama-free finales. Like as far as controversy goes in the scale of LVOs, there's always something. Don't get me wrong. But the final game was decided by the Eldar player not realizing that a monolith could come in within 3 and leaving a giant hole in his backfield. That is when the game was over. It was then set in stone when the Necron player rolled double 6s to keep the monolith alive. So it would be around for another turn. So pretty eventful way for that to go. Much better than water bottles or any other nonsense.
Everybody wants a surprise monolith.
Yeah, or nobody wants the surprise monolith. Certainly, he didn't expect it. But yeah, so it overall, again, the smoothest LVO by far. We didn't have the giant. War Games Live was obviously there, and they were the mainstream, and they were not up on the stage, so there was nothing up on the stage. We just had the projector showing the War Games live stream. That worked really, really well, and it means that we didn't have to have judges just corralled right there. There's a lot of upsides to that.
Neat.
Yeah, no, it was the Frontline launched the Blood Throne, their new Kickstarter game.
Mm-hmm.
They had a bunch of crazy sculptures and miniatures. From what I understand, it looks like a really fun game. They put a lot of work into it. Very co-op oriented, not a war game. But excuse me. But yeah, Elvia was great.
It really
I-
sounds like they're starting to hit a stride because I heard good things about last year a little bit too.
Did
they're
have some
starting to-
BCP issues, but nothing that
Sure.
delayed a round.
Well, there has to be a BCP issue. Without a BCP issue, I think it just wouldn't work. The event wouldn't happen. So, it's
Or also, Games Workshop announced that they bought the ITC.
okay.
That's a important thing.
That's
that
the
happened.
biggest secret in the world's out of the closet.
Woo.
They bought ITC some time ago and didn't tell us. quote
Yes, I
unquote.
did, DK. It's not COVID though. I've tested, but I don't know what it is.
All right. So next on our agenda is I get to talk about Rogue Trader. And the reason I get to talk about Rogue Trader is because I love 40K, not just competitive 40K. And I love 40K video games. In fact, one idea for today's show was going to be to rank 40K video games because the problem is lots of them are bad. But there's good ones.
Yeah.
Space Marine is good. Dark Tide is good.
Dark Tide's really good now. It's had several
Dark
large
Tide's
updates.
really good. There are some real the Civilization one, Gladius is an amazing game. If you guys like Civilization, it's like Civilization with less budget and 40K. It's incredible.
There's another one that is a turn-based strategy game with Blood Angels versus Tyranids.
Oh, there is, yes.
And that one's actually pretty fun.
Okay.
But monotonous
my
because
favorite
it's
was actually an Epic one. Like Epic the game, not
yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, 20 years ago, and it was a turn-based strategy with the units from Epic. And that's one of the things, right, is they don't like to do Games Workshop doesn't like to license things that are similar to playing a turn-based tactical war game. Like they're okay with character-based, but they don't want you anyways.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to play Rogue Trader. I like games like Baldur's Gate quite a lot. I like cooperative a lot. Almost all the gaming I do is cooperative. Computer and console gaming, not tablet gaming, obviously. And so my friend and I played through Baldur's Gate. Took us about 120 hours. Then we played
my playthrough too.
for a while. Then we played through Rogue Trader, which took about 120 hours. So I have both of those things well in my mind. And early in Rogue Trader, I made an announcement that is, I think this is a better game than Baldur's Gate for me. I don't think it's a higher quality game. I don't think it has had more budget. I don't think it's less buggy, but I like it better. And the reason for that was, one, is I don't care about the Baldur's Gate world. I'm sorry, I just don't. I've played all the Baldur's Gate games. I don't know. It doesn't matter enough to keep in my brain. I don't know why that is. But also, I liked the combat better in Rogue Trader. I liked how you level a lot because you're going to get to like level 50 by the end of the game. I like that much better than how Dungeons & Dragons has done it. In fact, I don't like D&D role-playing games online normally because of that, because I want to have the character progression more often. So I liked that about Rogue Trader, and I felt like I was customizing and building characters, and I felt I was exploring the galaxy, and I was doing all these neat things, and it was the most amazing computer game, and I loved it so much. And then I got halfway through the game. And the reality of it, and if you go to Reddit and you look online, you'll see this in spades. It's a crappy game after the halfway point. It's really bad. It's super buggy. The conversation that was already too much goes to exceedingly too much, to the point where I had to stop paying attention to the plot, large portions of the plot, because my attention span couldn't handle the amount that this insane Drukhari guy wants to tell me. And it becomes buggy, and then the combat system breaks. So it gets to a point where the fights are crazy hard, and the only way we could figure out to beat them is to wildly abuse one character and then give her four turns at each round. That was what we did. It worked great. We went online. Everyone else is doing the same thing. That's not good for me. So for those that are interested, I would give it a chance to be patched. However, if you are someone that doesn't have a lot of free time, I think it's an amazing game for you. Because I literally think that the first half of that game, to me, might be the best 40K computer game. I just loved it. I couldn't stop playing. I couldn't put it down. I just adored it. They just didn't stick the landing. The last half of it is just not well thought through, and it's quite buggy. So also, if you care, this is just a help. If you care a lot about which characters are in your party, use a walkthrough to make sure you don't lose them. It's quite hard sometimes if you want to keep someone to keep them. So in the end, Baldur's Gate's a better game. It's less buggy. It's better thought out. There's more variety. But if you love that sort of game and you love 40K, then obviously you've probably already started playing Rogue Trader.
So I did start playing Rogue Trader.
What's
And then
that?
I heard I did start playing Rogue Trader, and then I heard exactly what you're talking about the second half.
Oh.
And I was like, this sounds like a Cyberpunk situation. And I looked at my play time on Steam, and I was at 1 hour and 58 minutes, and I refunded it.
Ha! Take that, Steam.
And I'm just gonna wait until it's fixed, and then I will play it.
I think you should. And Chuck, I think that's my advice to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I played until you get to the unfortunateness to me at least was like immediate and drastic. It was this wonderfully well-made game, good story. I was following it. I was really engaged, and then they were just like, "Here's the entire universe. Goodbye. Have good luck. Good luck. Keep track of all this yourself." And I don't play often enough to keep the story threads in my mind. I need guidance. I need quest markers. I need
quest
stuff.
log is bad.
Yeah.
One of the things that's wrong with it is it's terrible quest log.
As soon as I saw that, I dropped it and started the BG3 playthrough from the one before the one I'm currently on.
Yeah, we started another Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough, but we did it too soon after the first one, and our brains just exploded.
See, that's
It was like, no, I really don't want to talk to all these people again. If it was just, honestly, for all of these games, after you beat it, if they gave me a play combat version and it didn't have any of the story, and I could just build the character and do the combats, I would play the hell out of Baldur's Gate 3. My problem is once I know the story, I have no interest in listening to the story ever again.
You don't have to listen to the talk, Colin. You can just be the worst, most awfulest person in the world and just try to kill everything that moves.
I have done that, actually.
Okay.
see, I'm saving that playthrough.
Yeah, we're doing the evil playthrough right now, in fact. I'm doing the barbarian that can make anything he has explodey, like Gambit. And so he just throws things and they just explode over and over again. It's very entertaining. Anywho, so yes, that's my review of Rogue Trader. I give it a solid, you're confusing. That's my review. Okay.
First half 10, last half 1, 5.
Yes. Well, I would say, honestly, I would say
I'm joking.
first half 10. I would say first half 10, second half 6. Right? Like,
So
I
7.
didn't stop playing. And I will say, for those that are willing to stick with it, I really am going to be careful not to give any spoilers here. The faction that you fight at the end of the game is graphically amazing, and the places that you go for the final fights are stunning and cool.
I'm just gonna wait for modders to make it more fun.
Yeah, I won't give you the list because some people want the surprise, but I was telling Chuck about this. The normally in an RPG, right? There's a point in the RPG where you're like, oh, I've seen all the bad guy types, like Diablo's like that, right? The factions they pulled from for the combats in Rogue Trader is really impressive. Like it's like, I don't know, 8 or 9 different tabletop armies.
Hell yeah.
It's pretty flipping cool. And it gave me the experience where I'd be playing with my friend who doesn't play 40K, and I'd be like, oh my God, look at that. Which was really, really, really fun for me.
So
okay.
I would say I don't know that any 40K video game will ever be able to beat the original Dawn of War with all the expansions as the best 40K video game.
Yeah, and the second one of those was co-op.
Yeah. And you had campaigns and for different factions, and there was a plot, like man. Yeah.
And also it was like nothing we had ever seen.
Yeah.
Like the graphics and like when the combat happened and there was like bullets filled the screen, like all of that was graphically very amazing to us at the time.
I mean, unless you played Total Annihilation or Supreme Commander.
No, but the production quality was much higher in the Dawn of War.
Yeah, no, I just meant I was talking about the actually calculated ballistics. But anyway.
Oh, okay, yes. You know me. I'm not gonna talk bad about Total Annihilation. I wouldn't do that.
Would never forgive you.
I wouldn't do it. I'm sorry. I can't help thinking about Mish. I was talking to our friend Mish before this about Warhammer Old World, and he says he's talking to me about High Elves, and he says, "Now you're going to take 2 eagles in every game, and if you don't, I'm going to know all the way from over here, and I'm going to be mad at you." Which I think is some of the best tabletop army building advice I've ever gotten. I will know from Norway that you have done this.
Well, yeah, the Eagles are always watching.
You'll feel the disappointment.
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay. So, are we ready to move on?
Sure.
I mean, I can talk video games forever, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't think of any other 40K video games right now that stand out.
Bolt Gun was really cool, the
another
Doom,
turn-based
40K.
combat one. Oh, there's a Diablo one that is incredibly mediocre that I played through.
oh, Inquisitor.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
fine.
It's really fun for about 20 hours.
Yeah, it's
Like if that's what you want to get out of it, like at a certain, well, I've only played one class, but like once you kind of understand your knockback, like back up, like do this, do that, like it becomes very repetitive.
yeah.
But it does have some really cool models in it.
Well, those action RPGs, the people that make them have a really hard time sticking the end, right? Like making an end game experience that keeps people playing doesn't cost them infinity dollars to keep creating content. It's really a hard challenge. And like I love Diablo, and I'm not playing the current Diablo game because the end game is dumb. I hate it. Don't like it at all. So yeah. Okay. So the next topic is the history of best in faction. So I go to a tournament, I win the tournament, I meet Mitch, we become friends, and then
I've been looking for someone to have a podcast with forever. Like I had like not before I had met you, I had already proposed to like 2 other people. I'm like, hey, let's make a podcast. Let's talk about 40K. No one is making like the content I want. Like this is
who is going to give the white male point of view to the world?
well, no, I kept listening to Chapter Tactics and getting upset.
Yes, that was real.
That was real.
Yes.
That was like the most. I'm like, no, this is not. We're not discussing. We're talking around competitive 40K. I want to talk about competitive 40K. I want to talk about the mechanics. What are they doing differently? And back when we started, like there were so many more combinations you had to understand, just because you could attach characters in different squads. The number of ingredients was larger, so the amount of combinations was larger. So that created a need for people who could hone in on the most effective combinations, and then a need for the people who could hone in on the most effective counters to those combinations.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't happening in discourse. Like high level 40K players would talk with each other, but no one was putting that information out to the public. And I got really frustrated having to constantly explain my army mechanics of why I'm doing this and how this is going to wipe you off the table in 2 turns. And I just wanted my opponents to understand already.
Mm-hmm. I kept telling you no.
That sounds right.
Yeah, my basic stance, and it's actually very similar to my current stance. My basic stance was, why would anyone want to hear what I have to say about this? So, because I didn't understand the value that I could provide, and it still took me years after that to figure it out. But I didn't understand it. I'm not someone who, until my 40s, really had any sort of good self-awareness. So it's been very hard for me to make decisions about what it is that I'm going to enjoy doing and be able to provide value to. So when Mitch kept asking me, eventually I'm like, okay, sure, yes. And Mitch would come over to the house, and he didn't live particularly close.
No.
He would come over to the house, and we would sit next to each other in front of a computer at a microphone. Because
Wasn't it like a card table or an end table or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we had a hard time having us both sit at the correct distances because we're different volumes. And yes, and none of that was the right way to do it. And then we got invited onto Chapter Tactics, and they were using this weird web-based system that was absolute trash.
Yes.
And it was terrible, but it caused me to do research, and we ended up being able to do it remotely. But it started off as literally Mitch and I just talking about tournaments. And we would talk for 3.5 hours.
On combinations, army reviews,
Yep.
just
Yeah,
anything and everything.
Yeah, really anything we could think of. And it took a long time for me to realize that one of my jobs on the show is to stop Mitch for talking for 4 hours. Because
If you can, I dare you.
Because the problem is that I'm a big talker as well, and if I enable him, it does not ever stop. So we ended up finally to figure out what the right format was, and there was a moment. So we started the show in like April or like March
May.
or something, right before.
It was Storm of Silence is when we started it.
Okay, and then we
so,
went to BAO like really soon after that, right?
Yeah, June.
Okay, because one of my most like front of my mind memories, I can't think of what a good term for that is, but like when I think of the years we've done this,
Deeply associated.
Charity Hammer, but I think of that silly, ridiculous San Francisco trip that we don't have time to tell that story right now, but just the most. I've traveled to 40 states. I have been traveling for 20 years, and that is my weirdest trip. So we went, but that trip to BAO, part of why it was weird is we had been doing the podcast for a couple months, and lots of people knew who we were.
It was wild.
Like three of my opponents, and one of my opponents was Mitch, but three of my opponents that aren't Mitch knew who we were. And Michael Snyder came and found us, who ended up being, well, you knew him already, but I didn't know him already.
Denise.
Yes.
Shout out to Denise from Australia. He has his own podcast going still.
Jeff Robinson at that tournament.
Yep, Jeff.
Jeff. So it was just this incredible moment. And I met Abuse Puppy, who ended up being helpful in the growth of the podcast early on. Yeah, lots of people at that tournament. But the fact that anyone knew who we were was insane. Also, the fact that evidently my voice is so distinctive that people can find me from across the room. I did not know that.
It's not just that it's distinctive, Colin.
Yeah,
it's also audible from across.
Yeah, it also projects.
Yes, and I'm chuck sized, which it does not hurt.
Yeah, you can look over the top and be like, "Oh, there's that one."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that one over there. So, anyways, the show keeps growing, and I start winning with Ynnari, and the show really gets successful. And one of the things that happens is an intensity shift that I think I knew that we needed Chuck because of the intensity that we were ramping up on, where Mitch was getting more competitive and I was getting more competitive and Mitch was getting more competitive and I was getting more competitive. And we were starting to get feedback that's like, this is an amazing show. Colin's got to calm the hell down. And I didn't have any idea how to do that. And it was perceived as this epic arrogance, which, by the way, it wasn't. But we've talked about that on other episodes. It wasn't healthy, but that's not what the unhealthy thing was. So I think that we figured out, I think that without being aware of it, we brought Chuck on the show to set the vibe. Because Chuck, and we've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to make Chuck listen to this for long, but basically,
you can talk about me as much as you'd like. I don't know.
Chuck also, we've talked about you a lot in the past. Chuck brings a different vibe because he does care about competition, but he cares about hobby more than Mitch and I do. And he's also been competitive in 40K for longer than us. And Chuck is also one of the best people in the world at being like, oh, I didn't do as well as I wanted. Okay. That's too bad. I'm bummed about that. And then an hour later be like, oh, everything's great now. What, Mitch?
We needed that energy.
Yes, we did.
That was I mean, all the other things, great. That one piece right there, key.
Yeah. And actually, the evenings of sitting in the hotel rooms and talking to Chuck about 40K was one of the best parts about going to tournaments. And interestingly, those memories are one of the things that's causing me, though, to step away from 40K, because Chuck will tell you that I am not healthy in those evenings. Why? because I'm an anxious person that doesn't need to worry about winning a stupid tiny soldier game the next day. Anyways, so we get more and more popular, and it's a mixture of things, right, Mitch? It's not just that I'm winning; you're also winning.
Yeah,
So
I've
we're
got
both
the
winning.
Hellhound list, and then
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Caspellum. And,
Yeah, we're both getting lots of attention that way. And then the other thing is we start getting the best guests.
Yes.
Because there's not that many people that are really good at 40K and articulate enough to nerd out the way we want. And we suddenly know them all. So.
And no one was interviewing them in this manner.
No.
There was no content like this at the time.
Yeah. They would bring Brandon Grant on to Chapter Tactics and say, tell us about your army. And he would say what was in it. And they'd say, what was your favorite unit? Well, okay.
Yeah. Or like, what are you going to change? Or favorite
yeah, and that's
opponent.
fine. That's fine. But we would bring Brandon Grant on and we'd spend 2 hours being nerds. And because of that, we got called the Show Your Work podcast. Because we would bring, and Andrew Gagno, I think, also pointed that out when he came on, that, you came on our show and we would start with, tell us about building your list. What were the last things you changed and why did you change them? And like, we would start at a very building block level, and that was very well received. That, I don't know what you guys think. I think there's a couple reasons why we pulled away from doing strictly that. Some of them are so I'm a very controlling person, and this is a thing that I had no idea how bad is. And I realized that I push things that I want without knowing. So part of this is me. I got bored of listening to 2 hours of super nerdy, detailed 40K talk, and I thought that the audience did as well. And so I started telling us to spend less time on our games, and less time on our games. And then we added other content. And the other content we added was the content I'm the most proud of. But I don't know that it was the content that the majority of our audience actually wanted. So that's like an interesting pivot that I think a lot about, where we stopped interviewing the best players in the world and making them talk about math and strategy and number for 2 hours. And we started talking about performance.
Well, I think you're leaving out an important part of that.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Which is Val and the Falcon having their 40K podcast covering every week, getting interviews with the people who won. Like they weren't long interviews, but like all of a sudden everyone was interviewing winners like we were. Like that just became universally what podcasts would do. Like they're like, hey, we have this winner on, or we have that winner on. He just won PAO.
And they would talk through their games.
Yeah, and like our format became ubiquitous, which is fine. Like you can't own a format. Like we came up with a winning format. It became ubiquitous. We had to do other things if we wanted, because it wasn't interesting to us. I agree anymore to do. I don't want to be doing the same thing everyone else is. That might be a way to summarize me as a person.
It's a massive understatement, Mitch.
Yeah,
like I do not want to be doing what other people do.
Yeah,
it's like
that's me in a sentence right there.
He's actually going to be on his tombstone.
Yeah.
Well,
he won't have a tombstone.
Would not conform.
Yeah. But so I agree. We pivoted, and I think that was the right move, because like as someone who consumed a lot of 40K content, like all of a sudden everything sounded so similar to what we had been doing. That wasn't interesting to me anymore. There was like Biff Pod started out of the desire for something that wasn't there in the competitive scene. Mm-hmm. Once it was there in the competitive scene, we moved over to sportsmanship and all of these other things that are really, really important to the competitive scene that no one else was talking about again. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really like the through line for the podcast, is that we go where the puck is going to be, not where it is.
Right.
I think that's really important to restate.
Sorry for tapping on my desk like that.
To restate it in a different way, we started out with the idea of we want to do what the competitive scene needs in order to grow. And we did that until it was adopted. And then we moved on to the more emotional part of it, the more community part of it, which was also what it needs next. And I see that in, as adopted as well. Yeah. I think we invented a bunch of things that people needed to see.
Yeah.
We were never the ones to perfect it. And I'm totally happy with that. Like, I love the content that I see that, you know, people who put the time, like, really push for it. They make
Oh.
really amazing things. It's great to watch and feel a little bit of like, yeah, I'm a little part of that.
And
Well, and
we
that's-
gave the community two. Let me say one thing, Mitch.
Oh,
we
sorry.
gave the community two more things after that. We gave them Stat Check.
Yeah, it's
Like,
cool.
100%.
What Stat Check is has nothing to do with us. But I put those people together and told them to make a podcast, and now they're a network that is very successful. So
we
like,
got up through that. There's a hurdle at the beginning of figuring out the technology and how to do it, and like getting them past that so that they could fly with the stuff that they're doing is
Well, and
amazing.
gave them an audience.
yeah, we
like-
gave them an audience to get them started, and
Yeah.
they made a really neat thing, and then they left and made an
100%.
even cooler thing, and the Frontiers guys left to make cool things,
Yep.
and now the TNG guys are what the and like Stat Check is what the community needed, and the data that they do and the analytics they do is what the community needed, and now the community needs TNG to go be that, go be like the guys, the TNG guys have our vibe,
Yeah.
they have it.
So
And they're going to go take it to a much bigger audience, and that's what the community needs now from us. And so I didn't think of it that way, Chuck. That's great. Go ahead, Mitch, with what you wanted to say.
I do agree with DK that giving us a platform might have been a war crime. But that's okay.
He had
No,
been given a platform several times before, so we maybe should have learned our lesson. But
no, that's true. Man, other
Some things
people
can't be
who have been
stopped.
given platforms multiple times, and we have never mind. I was gonna say I feel like the TNG guys they got to be part of Charity Hammer and all of these different things in a formative way that
Yeah.
we didn't, right? And that's fine. Like I'm not, but that I never am worried about like those guys at an event, right? Like I
No.
might be worried that Tyler is going to get a little too excited, and I'm like, hey, buddy, just take a breath. That's a different thing. He's very passionate, but like they represent really, really high standards of play on every front. Like, with the exception of hobby sometimes, but
Ooh, that's all.
no, they're competitive players. They have to adapt. I am not throwing shade at Payne.
Good.
Yeah. No,
Let's
no,
not end the show with hate mail.
no. But no, they really represent like peak what I think we want to see in 40K.
Yeah,
Right? Like competitive
agree.
40K. And that's awesome. It's so cool to see people that you were friends with achieve like what you couldn't.
Yeah.
Like and they are. They 100% are.
Yeah.
I definitely think of them as the next generation for us. It's funny that that's the name of the show, but like a passing of baton has happened there, and I'm super happy to see them grow.
Yeah. And that baton passing, I went on the first 5 minutes of their last show, guys, and I shared that it is the baton passing, and it ended up being the baton passing in a much more profound way than expected. Because I told them the story about us at that tournament, Chuck, where you said these kids are like 19, they're going to destroy us later.
Mhm.
And because they're so good already, and they're going to out rep us, and they're going to out effort us, and they're younger than us, and they're going to wreck us. And I was the competitive person in me wanted to be their last hurdle of that in the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to be like the guy that they have to go through. And the reality is I stopped going to events, and Steve Trimble became that guy, and he won a lot more than I was winning. And they're friends with Steve, and like that whole thing happened, right? But it wasn't me. And it wasn't my friends, and we weren't the people standing in the way like we would have been even just a couple of years earlier. So it ended up being not only that we passed the baton in other ways, but I also passed the baton competitively. Here, guys, you're better than me now. Go off and have fun, right? Like, really, really incredible how that all worked out. So going back to the show. So it's going well. We do Charity Hammer. That's a huge success, right? We start doing Charity Hammer. We start talking about our feelings. And I will tell you guys that the other big moment in our history that stands out for me is the 2020 LVO. Yeah, the 2020 LVO might have been the 2019 LVO. The one that was in 2020 and the one that was in 2019. One of those, we had recently done content on my anxiety in detail, and my anxiety and my imposter syndrome, stuff like that, and how hard it is for me and how much work I have to do to make sure that I'm having fun and my opponent's having fun. Hey, foreshadowing. So we spent a bunch of time on that, and it was really hard for me, but it felt really good for me. I'm an oral person, and I need to talk about things in order to calm down or process them, and I process them with everybody. And Mitch shared stuff about himself, very personal, incredibly difficult stuff he had gone through. Chuck shared stuff from his point of view, and we went to an LVO, and people came up to me emotional. And yeah, it's an emotional memory. And I got hugs, like not, hey, it's good to see you, I haven't seen you in a few hugs, but like, no, like, thank you for talking about this, hugs. And that's what, I think partially I'm getting a little emotional because it connects so well to what Chuck was just saying, and I hadn't thought of it that way. Okay, one of you guys talk about that.
Sure.
Please.
I'm going to talk about a different memory real quick because we kind of went past it. It's my, not including anything with Charity Hammer, but for Biff Pod, my favorite moment, and I will get emotional too, is interviewing Jeff Robinson for the last time. I still go back. I have the unedited call still, and I still go back and listen to it sometimes. I feel so lucky to have talked to him so close to, his passing, and to have seen him it was only the last year that I'd really become closer to him and I could call him a friend, right? And that'll always be probably, I can't think of anything on this podcast that could have meant more to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the connections are, right? We get to be a part of the community. That's a global thing, but it's also very personal, one-to-one connections. It's kind of what this podcast has brought to me. I am an introvert by nature, and I need a connection point. And I've met a ton of people because they get to know me a little bit on here first, right? I think it probably gets amplified with a more outgoing personality, but it's still incredibly valuable.
Well, and one of the things, Chuck, is when you came on, you were wanting better help with public speaking.
Yeah.
And you asked me for help. You said, this is a thing you do naturally, and I'll come on the show, but you need to give me feedback. You weren't 100% comfortable at first.
No, actually, I don't even know if I told you, this is a work skill that I identified that I needed this. I needed to be able to present better. I needed to be more comfortable with large numbers of people listening to what I had to say. And so that was definitely something the podcast has given me iterative chances on. In particular, I don't know how many episodes I could stand it for, but listening to the podcast back after it had been published and listening to the way I was talking and listening to the things I was doing and being like, I need to improve that. I need to improve that. A better way to handle myself would be this way. And sort of just like using it as an opportunity to coach myself as a whole side issue helped me a ton with my career. So that's good too.
Yeah, the explaining things about like vulnerability and communication and stuff like that. That I've reused that in helping mentor and train salespeople. Mm-hmm. We were developing important skills. I also learned some really important interview skills that I used when I did Chasing the Narrative and then Better Human, Better Gamer. In both cases, it's really fun when you interview someone because your job is just to make them look good. Mm-hmm. It's not about me. It's not about what's wrong with Chuck. It's not about you can just build them up. And it's really fun to see. And I think this happened for you, Chuck, where you came on the show and Mitch said nothing but nice things about you. And I said nothing but nice things about you. And the audience started being supportive, and it becomes so much easier to do the thing when you have that positive energy all around you. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's so fun, especially for an extrovert like me, to take an introvert, not necessarily like Chuck, but some of the people that come to Charity Hammer know who I'm talking about. Like, you know who I'm talking about. I love building those people up and making them comfortable so that they can do whatever is meaningful and fulfilling to them and whatever's happy for them and wherever their yum is, right? So that's a core thing for me, and that's a big part of why Charity Hammer's fun, that we haven't really talked about. So, okay. I think that's pretty much history. Best in Tabletop gets made. Go ahead, Mitch. I was going to say move to stories.
There was also the Mad Dash for faction focuses for. Was that 9th edition? I did that.
I don't know. Was it 9th edition?
Or was it? Yeah, I had.
We spent 2 hours on every army.
Or was it 8th? I can't remember. It all blurs together. Of the faction focuses that I did, where I did every Imperial faction. I'll never forget that. That was I had so many great guests on, and that was like, you were talking about like the interview skills. That was like the speed dating version, where I'm like, okay, we're doing one today, one tomorrow. Like, okay, I got 2 today. Like, yeah, that was definitely drinking from a fire hose in a really cool way. And and
that's after we've been doing Charity Hammer for a while.
Yeah.
So we knew like really good players. And so like my Eldar chat, I was like one of the least accomplished people in the chat. And I was just like, oh, this is so great. And like Matt Shuckman's there, and he's like talking about Eldar in a completely different way from how I see them. Like it was just, that was a really cool thing when we were analyzing the armies in that level of detail.
I'll never forget beating Matt Shuckman, LVO. I beat him. I had to roll a 6 on Overwatch on a multi-melta to kill the Wave Serpent on the charge.
That's great. Okay, so other fun or meaningful memories from doing the show. We're not going to talk about Charity Hammer. For those that are curious, Charity Hammer's nothing's changed. Still doing Charity Hammer, still once a year. You still can find it on our YouTube. I don't know, maybe it'll be on someone else's YouTube next year. That might make more sense. But it'll be there. It's nothing's changing. I'm going to lean on the TNG guys to help me with the roster, because that's the one thing I won't be able to do, because I won't be aware of who the good players are or who the good human good players are. Okay. 126. I thought we were in the 150s, but okay. All right. I asked somebody to figure out what episode number we are, because I don't know. So
I don't know either.
I feel like the 100th episode was a long time ago, but we were really lazy, so it's possible.
Yeah, we did take like half a year off
to do this one episode. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
We got a lot. Frankly, we have a lot to cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Other wild memories. Man, there's so many different, like, just combos and things we would talk about. I'll never forget having to face off against you, Colin, and then having to cover it. You know, like how we had to handle that multiple times, where we're both
oh my god, and the one game that was terrible, and we both knew it was going to be terrible, and then it was terrible.
Yeah, and I'm like, beforehand, I'm like, man, I'm kind of having almost a panic attack about you not being my friend after this. I don't want that to happen. Like,
God, our anxiety was going crazy because the game we were playing, Mitch's strategy against me was going to be wildly unfun for both of us.
And I had to,
like, but it was also the right strategy, and at least I acknowledged that.
Well, you just had a really unfun game too. Yeah. No, and then you made one mistake, and I'm like, "Here's my captain." Oh, captain, my captain.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That was when the captain could land on top of a very tall building and thus have a 1-inch charge.
Mm-hmm. Triangles.
Yes.
Triangles, indeed.
Well, in fairness, that was so long ago that Tyler Bortel wasn't old enough to explain triangles to all of us.
Yeah. We needed. He was the hero we needed, and we just didn't have him yet.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't have the level of triangle knowledge we needed, and neither did GW, it turns out.
Yeah, it turns out we needed someone who, like, designs drugs in theory to explain triangles to us.
Speaking of shapes and measuring, I'm going to take a shot on our way out.
Okay.
Why does GW still not understand that things on flight stands, like hovering things, are confusing for close combat? Like, Like, why is that a thing we just all have accepted as weird? Like, this is anyway.
Because the models look nicer that way.
I know, and that's fine, but we do need to have a way to know who's in close combat with them.
5 inches vertically, 1 inch horizontally. Just figure that out.
Yeah.
It's just
You
a
need to
Create
triangle.
a cylinder.
You
that
need a
just
tiny
move.
little straight edge that you put under the wave serpent, and you just measure it around each of them.
I have that in my dice bag now. So it's-
Great. Yeah, I think that we've done a lot of really fun episodes and a lot of really amusing things, but I want to talk about Nick Nanavati
Oh, sure.
because
Our relationship
Nick was
with
our
Nick
first
is
big
important.
guest.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said our relationship with Nick is important to the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So I start playing 40K. I'm winning a lot. Suddenly, I'm not winning a lot. I hear Nick interviewed because he won the ITC. And so I hear Nick interviewed on Chapter Tactics, and I think, this is a guy, I like the way he sees 40K. And I email him and say, I'd like to pay you for coaching. He had one other person asking him about that, and so he created the Brown Magic. And then it became Knights of the Game Table. Is that right?
Yeah.
yeah,
And now it's Art of
I forgot
War.
about that.
So I was literally one of the first 2 coaching clients for Nick. And we developed a pretty we aren't close. We don't talk all the time, but when we see each other, there's an affection there. I don't know how exactly. It's like we're like a cousin. Like we really like each other. We just don't spend time interacting anymore. And so but early on, we had Nick on the podcast several times, and he was such a good interview. The charm that Nick has is a big part of why Art of War succeeded. And so he was a great interview that was not hard for us to interview at all. You could ask him any question, and he would go on and on and on. But the attention that Nick brought was huge because there wasn't a good way to get attention. There wasn't places that we could go and say, hey, look at our podcast. We had like Facebook, and that's all. That's it. That's all we had. So now my computer's binging, which is not ideal. I think I can turn on Do Not Disturb, but so I think that it's a great shout out to Nick. We're not going to get to thank everybody who's important to the show, but a shout out to Nick and Falcon for the same reason. And Jeff Robinson. There's a couple of those people, and Andrew Gagno and Brandon Grant.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those people that came on the show early on, and it was massive for the attention we got. The LVO episode where we interviewed Brandon Grant after he won is still our top listened to episode. Still. Something like 13,000 downloads all these years later.
Falcon, it was interesting. Falcon was one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast, because he started calling me out on Chapter Tactics. Because I had my record was 87-3 or something, and I had won a bunch of tournaments, and so I actually it was fun. This is actually one of my favorite stories too, actually. So at Charity Hammer, the first Charity Hammer where I meet the Falcon, he gives me a big hug, and he's like, dude, you were one of the first 40K players I really followed. And that was the biggest compliment. I was I don't even know what to do with this. I just love you, bud. But the other biggest compliment I think I ever received was from Michael Snyder, telling me that him and Brandon Grant spent a month figuring out how to beat my Hellhound army, and they invented hugging.
Yeah.
Rapping.
Again, they're probably not the only people that invented rapping, but we certainly had never heard of it or seen
Yeah,
it.
I had never encountered rapping before that. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, certainly, and Mitch had done an entire LVO without anyone rapping a Hellhound. So I think it's also important to mention the number of people, and I can't even count it. It's hundreds of people that have come up to us and told them, maybe it's not hundreds, but it could be 100.
I think it is. I think it's 100.
Of people that have come up to us and told us that they go to tournaments because of us.
I've had that experience at almost every tournament I've ever been to since we
Yeah,
did this
and
podcast.
multiple times.
Yeah.
I think that, when I first went into our local game store, whose name I'm not going to use because this story isn't particularly positive, there were a number of people there that were just rude and sassy about Warhammer, and they were judgy. And I didn't understand that. And then people started explaining that there's like the comp scene is seen as these snooty asses, but then there's the hobby scene where they really care about it. And I was hanging out with these people down here that just wanted to F around and paint their models and argue about which Primarch's the best and things like that are fine to things to argue about, but not where I want to spend my focus. And I think that a lot of those people were too intimidated by that competitive scene to go try it. And so us coming on the show and saying, just go, everyone's going to be nice. You're not going to have, you're going to have a really terrible game one side of every like 200 tournament games. Like, it's going to be okay. And that message was well received.
Well, and again, I think we showed our work because we walked through every game and they're like, oh yeah, no, this is just like people playing. Like I completely agree. I think that I remember I'm still good friends with he doesn't play 40K at all. Like he's just a friend now. His name's Casey. And he had gone to the game store in Everett for his first tournament. And he did have a bad experience.
Yes. He did.
But that didn't stop him from playing and stuff. And I talked to him about it, and like we became friends. And he's not in 40K now because he has a kid and other issues, or not issues, but other things going on in life. But
it's one of the worst issues to get.
Yeah, well, I view kids as issues. Sorry.
Once you catch one, you're stuck with it for like 20 years.
Yeah, it's like a 20-year
or longer, maybe.
Yeah. But like there are a bunch of people like that I can be like, oh yeah, I'm just friends with them now. And that wouldn't have happened without the podcast. It's really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Yeah, I think that I'll just add to that many of my favorite people are people that only came to Charity Hammer because the podcast existed. So like, yes, we're not here to talk about Charity Hammer, but in truth, Charity Hammer is an incredibly important part of the journey.
It is.
Yeah, they're connected to each other. I don't think you could neither one of them can exist without the other.
Yeah.
They couldn't have started.
Now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, I think that I hadn't thought of it that way. In a way, Charity Hammer is the positivity that we knew the community needed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. Plus,
and there have been lots of other charity events. I don't want to. We didn't.
There are, yeah.
Oh yeah. Nova exists.
Yeah.
I think a big part of Charity Hammer is bringing that higher level play to people's living rooms, basically. And part of that is the narrative that, yeah, you should go to a tournament. These people are fine. They're fun. Look, everybody's here's having a good time. The tournaments might not be exactly that, but it does show, it demystifies. You can actually see it, right? I think that's great.
I think the other part of that is it gives players behavior to model that isn't the sweaty tryhard, right? Yep. Like if that's what your image is, and you don't know what, like, well, how do competitive players that aren't that, how do they behave? And then you see Richard Siegler give takebacks at the top table at LVO. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I feel like competitive 40K as streaming and everything has gone on, like, and as it has matured, has really done a good job of making a case for itself. For like, hey, this is fun. You can have a good experience. Like the COC is a big part of that. Like, you know, and we were, you know, in our small way, a part of that huge transition.
Yeah, I really agree. And driving it, being a part of it, being dragged along with it, all across the board. And I think it's such an evolution for this hobby, and I'm super happy with it.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time, guys. I'm just thinking about all the people that are huge names in 40K right now that listened to the show and were patrons early on.
Yeah.
Siegler and John Lennon and Alex McDougall and you know, I could keep going. That's really neat. I mean, that's how we met Anthony Vanilla.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It was the way our Discord for a period of time was, I would say, one of the peak places you could have an intelligent, like productive conversation about competitive 40K. There was a year or two where
we were the place.
where it was like, well, yeah, and it wasn't, and at that point, even I don't think it was us bringing that. Like we had built a community, we maintained it, but it was the people in that community that made it so amazing. Like
Yep.
how many podcasts started in the Biff Pod Discord? Sister Act. There have been several that have come and gone. I won't say them because like people might go and look for them and then they're gone again. But like there's been a bunch of different like I feel like we made an environment that was really encouraging for how you wanted to engage with the game, and the community our community and the Discord community just flourished with that and it was really cool to see. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out too to Danny McDevitt and John Quinnell, because those guys had already been doing mob rules, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And the mob rules fan base and the Biff Pod fan base is a Venn diagram where the circles started to overlap.
More and more.
We became really great friends with those guys and made content. And they were also a really big part of boosting our kind of attention and the fun in our Discord. And for a long time, we called our Discord the Mob Rules Patron Discord, because Mob Rules got talked about every time there was a new episode. The whole Discord took over. So it's just I want to shout out those guys.
I'm wearing this sweatshirt as a joke for John. This is just for John. No one else. Screw everyone else. This is for you, John. The only good modern Star Wars movie.
I think it's unlikely he's going to watch this.
Maybe he'll get word.
Maybe he will. I don't know.
He'll know it was me.
And there's a lot of other people we could thank, right? The thing about other people we could thank is it's just the same people we thank for Charity Hammer, right? Like it's that same.
I'd like to call out Tyler.
Oh yeah,
Tyler. No last name needed.
Nope.
You wonder why our tech works.
Yes.
At all.
Yeah. If you're on the Discord, you know who Tyler is.
Yeah.
But Tyler for sure.
Not Bortel. So
no, not Bortel. But
Tyler is the head of technology for Best in Tabletop.
He's just a phenomenal person who made our community so much better just by him being there. Like he didn't have to do anything. He did incredible amounts.
Yep.
Just have to shout him out for sure.
Well, like, Peter
and Michael Tempe,
and Jason.
And
all
Jason,
of those guys did incredible amounts of work on the Discord to keep it a good place and to manage it and take care of it so that I didn't have everything on my plate. Yeah, all those guys were a really, 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 really big part too of our
100%
of our growth and our success. So it's not an emergency, is it? No. Okay. Sorry, a kid invaded. I have 4 teenagers now, for those that are interested in a call and stress update. All of them boys. Okay.
No one's getting pregnant.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up in not too long, everybody. So if you've got questions or thoughts or things you want to share with us, get them in the comments. We're not done yet.
No.
But I want to get their comments going. So we have some things to talk about. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Mitch? Is that why you were?
No, I would say I was going to say another great memory while we're waiting for questions is the hot sauce eating competition. I think that was a hit.
Again, that's Charity Hammer, not Biff Pod.
I know, but that is it. I can't separate that from watching grown men pour milk on each other.
Yes, that's true. And that
is the shelf.
Is that
also Charity Hammer?
Is that the same year as the shelf?
No, that the shelf was
the year before, I think.
Okay. We don't know who has the shelf, everybody.
That mystery dies with the podcast.
One person knows they have the shelf, and they don't want to get caught.
That's true, Jason. The real shelf was the friends we made along the way, because we can rely on them.
I don't know this joke. I've never played Space Hulk. Is it really?
I think he's saying that's what you would do.
Yeah, I know. Well, are the rules bonkers or something?
It's really RNG'd.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's see here. Why would you confess to the perfect crime. Oh yeah, that's fair.
I want somebody to make a display board out of it and just be in a tournament every time and be like, oh, no one knows.
Make a display board and then go to Charity Hammer with it as your display board. That's the ultimate baller
villainy
move.
I
right there.
presume that somebody used it as an army tray, but we didn't see that. Like no one saw a big piece of white painted wood being carried
Yeah,
around.
like, and we have footage everywhere of all
Yeah,
that
that's true,
stuff.
too.
Like,
That is also true. Yeah.
so I would also like to shout out John and Danny just because like they did a lot for promoting the podcast. Like Mob Rules was a much more popular podcast than us at the time.
I just shouted them out.
I know I'm doing it too.
Oh,
I'm
okay. Fair
agreeing
enough.
with you. I'm just saying
enough.
it.
Well, I'm
They're
not
my
going to
friends
do it.
as well. Yeah.
I think they
No.
barely helped.
Yeah.
They're overrated.
All right.
See,
They
John's
would
going to
agree.
enjoy that.
They would agree that
Compliments
they're
hurt
overrated.
John.
Which is
He's
what's great about
Scottish.
them. They would agree that they're overrated. That's what's really great about them.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a thing, everybody, while we're waiting for the last few comments and questions ever. So I need something to do that isn't going to tournaments and isn't spending money at the moment. And I have a bunch of Warhammer Fantasy stuff. So I've been reading and preparing for the old world. In fact, I'm going to watch some friends play on TTS after this. That's going to be how I spend my my Sunday afternoon because I'm cool. So I have a Death Army. Excuse me, that's AOS terms. I have a Tomb King's army, a Vampire Count's army. I got some Seraphon, and my friend has a fully painted High Elf army that's being shipped to me. In March, I've got a weekend where Danny and a bunch of other people that are all wonderful, and Mitch and JT McDowell and Kazra is going to come, and we're going to do a weekend of Warhammer Old World. I have to convince Chuck that we'll have models for him and that he'll want to play because he's not going to want to spend any money on this either. So none of us are spending money, for the record. I did buy a model for $10 on eBay, but other than that, nobody's spending. Like we're just literally taking the models we have and like putting them on the table, and it's going to be
Take that, GW.
It's going to be incredibly fun because those are models I haven't played with in forever. I love the everybody's in rank and file slamming into each other. Very amusing. I like how many dragons are currently in my house for this. So that'll be really fun. I'll talk about that on the Discord. We are talking about Old World on the Discord. If you need a place with cool people, find one of our admins. Me, Jason, Peter, Mitch.
Hey.
Mitch is easier to find than me, probably.
I am also going to be learning Old World for the first time. I know nothing. I have never played Old World, no edition. I am as pure as the driven snow. Like, no idea.
I read the rules. It
What's
is certainly more complicated than 40K. Yeah, I was super amused because in the 40K rulebook that we just got for 10th edition, the book is like 350 pages, and the rules start at like page 275. In the Old World rulebook, it's like 335 pages, and the rules started on page 75. because it's rank and file, there's several pages describing the different ways you can move your unit. That isn't actually complicated at all, but if people don't understand it, it sure takes a lot of pictures to explain it. And they also did a thing that I think is smart, ? Which is they took things that are important to a section and put them in the section, even if they had taught them to you already. So in both close combat and shooting, the entire to hit and strength and toughness rules and tables are there in both.
Makes it a better
So if you
reference. when
look
you're
there,
playing.
you'll find the thing you want. But when you're reading the rules for learning them, it's very frustrating. And my brain hates, like, if you guys ever, like, when you go on Netflix and you start a show and it accidentally puts you on the previous episode, Stephanie will notice, my wife will notice that immediately. I won't notice it, but my brain will get pissed off. Like I'll start getting frustrated, and that when I'm reading, it's very hard for me to focus on learning while reading with my ADHD. And so it's really hard for me. And then when I'm like, damn it, I think I've read this already. It's really hard for me. But the rules are cool like that though, because you can go look the thing up, and all the universal unit rules are in one place, unless it's for your army, and then it's at the end of your codex after you've read all the data sheets. But let's not worry about that right now. It's great.
Yikes.
So if you have all of the unit, you have the rules of making your detachment first. Great. Solid GW. That is the first thing. Great. Then you have your characters and then all your units. Also need that. That's great. Then your items that you can buy for the units. Okay. Then your magic items for your characters. Okay. Spells are in a different book. Fine. And then finally, at the very end, it's a page that says, "Oh, here's what the extra special rules mean. Here's what arrows of Islandar or whatever mean." So, anyways, I thought that was funny. We have some questions.
All right.
Do you have any new or fledgling podcast suggestions besides the stat check ones that you would recommend us pick up to try and fill our time now? What a great question. I still really like Grim After Dark.
Yep.
I think that's must listen.
I think TNG. I forgot their new name.
Take All Comers.
Yeah, that's right. There's something clever, but yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Take All Comers. I think they are. I don't know. I learn every time I listen to them, and I enjoy listening to them. And that combination is, what I'm looking for.
I think the Art of War podcast is coming back too, which was always really good.
I mean, I still like. There's the Art of War Down Under, obviously. With the.
Does he still do that?
Oh yeah, I'm still a Patreon.
Oh, okay.
Just because I love Adam.
972.
I got to get my dose of Adam, man. I need that sketchy Australian accent ringing through my ears. I just want to feel like a crime might happen, you know?
And with the hype. Don't forget the hype.
Oh, yeah. The infinite energy.
He's okay at doing hype. He does all right.
Yeah.
He's all right.
It was weird to see Paul Murphy at LVO without like a vibrating ball of energy next to him.
Yeah.
Is that just what he's into? Never mind.
It's
Different. It is Vegas.
I'm sorry I don't know other podcasts. I will tell you that I do want to do a thing. I do want to make a podcast. It's not now, it's not soon, but I do want to do a thing that is about being a gamer at this stage in my life and the combination of family and mental health and gaming and all of that. I want to do something about that that's going to be important and fun rather than just fun. I don't know what it looks like. It's not Better Human, Better Gamer, because that ended up being too much of what we were trying to do. But it's going to be something. So I'm going to think about that. If any of you guys have an idea of a value that I can bring to the world and that you'd like to share with me, I'm open to suggestions and thoughts. This is just, I'm going to want to do something creative that's focused around presentation, because that's an important thing for me. I don't know what it's going to be yet. So
if you want non-40K podcasts, man, I can go to town, but a lot of them will be political.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the last episode, so I can just go out in flames. But no, if you like history, Behind the Bastards is amazing. That is a phenomenal podcast. But for 40K, I don't have anything for 40K. There's this Old World podcast I've been hearing about called That Old World Charm, hosted by one Daniel McDevitt, Peter the Falcon, and Adam Camilleri. Probably give that a listen. That seems good.
Oh, how many episodes of that have they done? I'm
3.
friends with those people, and I don't know about the podcast.
3.
Danny.
I mean, if you were watching Grim After Dark, you know about it.
Yes, but I am not paying attention to 40K at the moment. I believe we're ending the network for reasons. So yes, no, I've actually been talking to Danny about Old World, which is why I'm teasing him. He was watching, but I think he had a game at.
Probably. He'll watch later. But
I'm going to go watch
World
things here in a minute, actually.
And then the other Old World podcast, I'm going to be equal opportunity. I'm going to be the BBC here. Is Val's Old World podcast, which is Square based.
Oh, I do like me some Heffelfinger.
Yep. But it's with Rob Symes, so I don't know if that's really going to be your cup of tea.
You know, one other memory I want to call out, and I think this is going to make Chuck laugh. One of the most memorable experiences of my life is meeting Kicker for the first time.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't, Kicker and I mean, we're friends, but like we don't have any close, we don't talk all the time or anything. But the first time I met Kicker, He was not doing the 40K thing. People didn't know who he was. He was just this vibrating ball of energy, as Mitch just explained, that was so excited to meet Chuck and I that he couldn't stand still and he couldn't stop talking. Right, Chuck?
Yeah, I remember definitely thinking I would like to have 1/10 of this energy supply
Yeah.
for my own use. Like, I can't even believe.
Well, and he's like, yeah, I just ran 5 miles. Now I'm going to come walk 30,000 steps. And it's like, why? And he described himself to me as, I'm like a puppy. You have to exercise me or I'll get bored and pee in the corner.
Mhm.
That is how his wife describes him.
And at a tournament, that you can't have people peeing in the corners. It's not good.
No.
Had to red
Just that
card that one
time.
guy.
Oh, jeez.
Let's see. Yeah, Adam Camilleri is the only person in the world that Gus hates.
That's because Adam Camilleri is secretly Gus in a human suit from another timeline, and he doesn't trust that.
I see that. We have this little black wiener dog that's like the loveliest dog ever. Like she climbs Chuck when he's here to get cuddles. One of my friends has a friend. One of my kids has a friend that she's decided is Satan incarnate, come to burn her house down. And when like she barks when you guys come over, yeah, but she's not mad. This is like she made a noise at this guy that she's 6 years old. We had never heard it. The bark was shrill and angry, and every time that kid is at her house, the whole time he's there, she's on edge. And any noise she hears, she yells like that. She is so mad at him. We don't know what he did, but dogs are so funny like that. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't trust him if your dog is." No, my dog is crazy. Like this is not this. This dog was not trained for a job. This dog's job is to snuggle. Like,
I had a dog that was like that, where like the only people he didn't like were consistently sex offenders, and I'm like, okay, like that's it. That's the only people he didn't like.
That's a good skill to have.
Yeah, I'm like
to talk more about this because if my dog was good at figuring out sex offenders, I don't think I'd know. But Mitch is running in different circles than me.
I worked in construction, my man.
Okay.
Yeah, dude.
Fair enough. I watched The Longest Yard last night for those that are Adam Sandler movie fans, and I love the fact that everybody's cheering for these murderers, and like at the end, you've forgotten that everybody is a terrible criminal that's there for life.
That's not the message of that movie. The message of the movie is fuck the state.
That's definitely not the message. It was a funny movie though. Let's see. I'm going to listen to your banter. Oh, thank you. Okay, guys, I think we're here. I mean, we can banter for another 30 minutes, but I would rather not do that. So I think we should.
I have one other thing I have to talk about that's 40K adjacent.
Okay.
Rebel Moon.
Oh, is that good? I've been wanting to watch.
No. Okay, so there's been a lot of discourse about Rebel Moon, and yes, the plot is ripped straight from like 3 separate Star Wars movies because it's the same fucking plot in all of them. But Zack Snyder has nailed so much of the 40K aesthetic in it, especially in the last scene of the movie. I have never in my life fast forwarded through a film just so I could see the costumes and set pieces and ignore all dialogue and action. Like, don't watch it. Fast forward through it, and it'll look like regular speed because they do slow-mo and super slow-mo for like half of the film.
Okay.
But for actual Kamel nailed it. Rebel Moon is 40K, bad 40K fanfic. Like, they nail the aesthetic though. Like, they are even like the way that they communicate across long distances. You have to be put in a vat and you're like on an ice plane. Like, you're in the war. Like, they are so just ripping off 40K and slapping it on a Star Wars story. Like, don't think it's like, don't go in with any expectations other than pretty set pieces. That's it.
Yeah, that was actually Enter Sandman for me. Maybe it was because I hadn't read the book, but the book. Sandman on Netflix is so gorgeous. Like I literally just started like the dialogue wasn't right for me. I had a hard time paying attention and caring about the dialogue, but I would just get distracted by how stunningly beautiful it is. Oh, Pan's Labyrinth too, yeah. except it has great dialogue. But Pan's Labyrinth is another one where you're just like, it's just beautiful the whole time.
Oh, that's fantastic film.
Yeah, I haven't seen the second Avatar, but I bet it's pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to start with their final thoughts?
I don't really have a ton of final thoughts. What I have is thank you. Thank you to both of you. I really enjoyed being a part of the podcast. Thank you to all the community and the people that I've gotten to meet along the way. And then also thank you to all the people who are continuing. I'm not in 40K right now to a terrible degree, but I will be. And I will need your podcasts to get me caught up when I decide to come back in at full steam. And I'm looking forward to your help. So I guess just thank you for everybody. It's been wild and fun, and I'm better for it. So it's good.
I would 100% echo that for sure. Thank you. Something that just hit me as you were saying that, like, I can't tell you how many times in like the last 6 years that I've been in a room where I'm like talking to people. I'm like, I can't believe that I'm in this room talking to these people. Like, and it's me here, right? Whether that's like seeing like John Lennon, like come into his own, or like conversations with different people. Like I've been so lucky to be in so many incredible like situations and circumstances and experiences because of this podcast and you guys and everyone who listens. And this is one of the longest, like, this is a body of work. It's one of the longest things I've ever done, like consistently, like just day in, day, or not, obviously not day in, day out, but like just regularly hammering away at it and enjoying it. It gave my life a rhythm that I'm going to miss. Mm-hmm. And I don't really like, a little behind the scenes. I have been pestering these guys to do episodes for months. Because I still do want to talk about 40K.
Someone bring Mitch onto a show. For F's sake, people.
No, that's not what this is about. But like, that rhythm meant a lot to me, and everyone who made that rhythm possible will always have a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
This community got me through the hardest time in my life. A really debilitating injury. Yeah. And I can honestly say I'm not sure I'd be here without it. So, yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so how shocking that I'd be the last one to talk. God, what you guys said is so good. I think that I don't like journeys to end. I don't like TV shows that I love to be over. I don't like the finale. However, there's a few shows that do the finale so well, like The Good Place. Yeah. Where the finale is so good that I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You're done now. Great. Good job. But that's how this feels to me. I don't like when a thing ends and I want to know what's happening with the characters beyond that point. The characters here, we're still around. We're still going to do stuff, but it's time for this. I have felt a weight from this for the past while because the network needed things from me that I was just not doing. And it wasn't that I wasn't doing them because I didn't want to. It's just like I wasn't doing them. I just couldn't with all the things that I had going on. And so, it's just right. It's just the right time. But that doesn't mean I'm happy about it. It's really a difficult thing, and it's really an emotionally difficult thing because I had not done something this public before. I had done things, but never with this level of attention. And I had not won at something like I won at 40K. I've not been good at something like I'm good at 40K, and I've not had a community like the one in 40K. So all of that is so profound to who I am as a person that it doesn't separate. Right? I'm not changing in 5 minutes when this turns off. I'm continuing on with the person that this show helped me build. So I just want to tell everybody that, like, you got to go find what's fun for you. And it's probably 40K, and you should go and you should play the army you want to play, and you should play it the way that you want to play it, and you should play against the people that you think are fun, and you should find your fun, and you should find your happiness. And that's what this should all be about. And that's what's important to me. So, whew. Well, I'm going to see you guys at Charity Hammer. I'm going to see Chuck and Mitch before that, but I'm going to see the rest of you at Charity Hammer. So this is not goodbye. It is the end of a thing, but it is not goodbye. We will all see you guys soon, and I hope we'll all be on other shows as well. I told the Best Overall guys that I want to be on a show that's not about competitive 40K. I just want to talk about something else. I don't care what it is. So thank you, Chuck and Mitch, for incredible amounts of work and then a lot of putting up with my bullshit at times. I'm not always the easiest person to do these things with. And thank you incredible amounts to the not only greater community, but the Discord.
Yeah,
The adulting
absolutely.
channel.
Yeah, thank you to the Discord.
The adulting channel where people openly talk about being grown-ups. And the pets pictures when I need them. And, that's all staying, but it's not going to be the same. But that community is the most important thing to me, community-wise. That's who I talk to, is those people. That's how I have, friendship and attention. And that's all from the podcast. So, yeah. Okay. That's it. That's what I got to say. Go ahead, Mitch.
So on the subject of other shows, I am trying to work on a podcast about living with head trauma. I am currently searching for a co-host that has expertise, since I have lived experience, and I don't want that to be the only perspective on the podcast or show. I'm open to how it's going to work, but that has been something I've been thinking about for a long time, and something I want to do. So if that's something that interests you, or someone who struggles with, there was a recent, one of the first things I want to cover actually is there was a recent study that was done on concussive damage to the brain from things like mortars and artillery from the people firing them. And it turns out it's causing a very significant amount of brain trauma that the U.S. government is more or less just like, yeah, we don't want to worry about that. So there's a lot more people out there, especially for veterans, that are dealing with these issues. So that's something I'm going to hopefully be able to put together.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think you'd be amazing at that, Mitch. I think that would be really, really good. So, okay, everybody, find us on our Discord. Chuck Arnett on Facebook and Discord. Mitchell Pelham, maybe on Facebook. Not sure.
I'm not on Facebook at all.
Oh, you're on Facebook? Okay.
No.
Well, he's on Discord.
Yep.
You can find him through other people. I'm Colin Sherman. I'm also on Discord. You can find me at bestinfaction@gmail.com basically forever, because why would I get rid of a Gmail email address? There's no reason to do that. Also, I have a bunch of things that bill to it. So, there's also that. Yeah, you can find us going forward. If you want to be a part of or help out on Charity Hammer, please reach out to me. It's going to be harder for me to make those connections. So, okay, everybody. Thank you. Incredible love from us. And with that, the last Best in Faction is done. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.